Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to stick to Hong Kong and we're going to return to a brewery that's featured on the channel a couple of times before. I've had some really nice beers from these guys over the last couple of years, quite a few different styles, and if people were to ask me about this brewery, I would say that they are just pretty solid all round. I've had some really nice lagers from them, quite a few different types of IPA, and we've had a few interesting Imperial Stouts from them as well, but there are still styles I need to have a look at from these guys actually. But the beer we're going to have a look at today should be quite an interesting one. It's a style that I've had from this brewery before and know they can do very solidly. It's also got a little bit of a twist to it that I personally quite like, and you don't see all that often in this beer style these days. And it's a little bit of a special occasion beer for this brewery as well. So all three of those factors are piquing my interest in this one. So yeah, needless to say, I'm very curious to see what this beer is going to have in store for us. Hopefully it's another good beer, hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, we are going to stick to Hong Kong like I said. We're going to go a bit north of me here in Kowloon to the New Territories, a place called Pho Tan to be specific, and that means that we're going to have a look at another beer from Carbon Brews. So this particular beer is called Brian and the Chocolate Factory. It comes in at 11% ABV, and this one is an Imperial Stout. I'm not sure if we can exactly call it an Imperial Pastry Stout, but by the sounds of it, it probably will be. So, oh yeah, they're calling it on the side of the bottle here, Pastry Stout Orange Chocolate. But yeah, 11% ABV this one. From what I understand, this beer is a blend of bourbon and rye whiskey, barrel-aged Imperial Stouts, and then you've got, you know, the chocolate orange and all that kind of thing added into this one. So yeah, this was released for Carbon Brews' 5th anniversary. I picked this one up at the Carbon Brews bar in on Wyndham, is it Wyndham Avenue? I forget, on Wyndham in Central. So yeah, let's crack on with this one then and see how we get on. The last beer we tried from these guys was of course the Minter Wonderland, which was a very mild Imperial Pastry Stout actually, so I'm curious to see how this one turns out, especially considering this is a bit younger. So yeah, as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links can be found in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Carbon Brews before, and we will no doubt add more to that list at some point in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated, and remember, you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. So just go in there, use the little search bar, put in your hometown, state, county, province, whatever you like. If I've reviewed beers from the area that you search for, they will pop up. Failing that, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the Hong Kong playlist, along with a number of other things that's being added to regularly since I'm based out here now. And yeah, check out the playlist of beers from other countries as well, because there are some very interesting things on the channel these days. So yeah, let's go on to my brewery notes then, and I'll tell you a wee bit about Carbon Brews. So Carbon Brews, as I've told you before, was founded back in 2018, and it's located in Pho Tan in the New Territories of Hong Kong. But the original brewery was on the 1st and 10th floor of the Union Industrial Centre in Pho Tan, and this was previously the home of the Hong Kong brewing division of Kyuchi Brewery from Ibaraki in Japan. Quite a big sake brewery there, of course, but they were brewing their Hitachino Nest beers in this brewery, and they established this facility originally back in 2015. So the original general manager of this brewery was Chris Wong, and he was previously an accountant. He's from the US, and he also co-founded HK Brewcraft and Heroes Beer Company while also working for Hitachino's Hong Kong operations. But essentially, when Hitachino decided to withdraw from this facility, Carbon Brews took over the brewery in late 2018 and was established as a completely new brand. But the name Carbon is derived from the name of the area, Pho Tan, because tan translates into English as carbon, hence the name Carbon Brews. But they very quickly built a reputation as being a very experimental brewery, and from what I understand, their Group 14 beers were very good back in the early days. I've heard very good things about those. But these days, Carbon Brews has a tap room on Wyndham in Central and Hong Kong Island. This opened in 2022, and they've also got another bar in Akasaka in Tokyo over in Japan, which I believe opened just a little bit earlier. But in 2023, they took over the Double Haven Brewing / Dragon Water facility down the road in the Wai Industrial Centre, and this upped their capacity quite significantly. But the brewery operates a 35 hectolitre brew kit, and the current head brewer is Diaz Jumashev, who I believe is from Kazakhstan, and he's joined in the brewing team by Justin Chan, Lydia Kuzmina, Harry Liu and Tommy Liu. But as of June 2024, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced about 135 different kinds of beer, according to Untappd, and like I said, they do a whole variety of different styles. I mean, one of my favourite beers, not boys, from Carbon Brews is the El Crispy Boy, which is a lovely Mexican lager that's really, really well done. And you know, Crazy Rich Lupulins, that was the first core range New England Hazy double IPA here in Hong Kong. There's a lovely black double IPA that these guys do as well, but I really forget the name. I think it was some kind of Star Wars reference, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, all in all, very well-rounded brewery, always trying different things. So definitely worth trying some of their beers if you get the chance. But yeah, if you want to learn more, check out the brewery website, follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on. And you can, of course, check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a wee bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's go on and have a little look at this beer itself. I'll just read to you the little blurb thing that's here on Untappd before we look at the artwork and things. But it says, this Imperial Stout is a perfect blend of rye whiskey and bourbon barrels, which gives it a rich and complex flavour profile. It pours deep midnight black and has thick viscous consistency that is sure to please. The beer starts with a huge blast of chocolate, amberana-like wood and orange zest, followed by a deeper aroma that offers a nice bouquet of dark fruits like dates and figs. The 11% ABV is just right, providing a pleasant and gentle buzz. The elevated body and complex grain bill make this pastry-like Imperial Stout a perfect choice for anyone who loves chocolate. It's like being inside a chocolate factory. So yeah, from what I understand, this is also one of the last projects that Carbon did that Connor Hogan was involved in as well. He was the Irish head brewer that they had for quite a wee while, and he did some really good stuff actually, from what I've tried and what I've been told. So yeah, this should be pretty good. But I'll let you have a wee look at the artwork on this one before we open it up. As you can see, it is pretty nice. It does look like, you know, is that meant to be you know, Johnny Depp's hair or something on the back there? That's pretty cool. But yeah, you can see plain black bottle cap on this one. You can see the Carbon Brews symbol there on the back of the bottle as well. But yeah, 11% ABV this one. It tells you about the where was it again? It tells you about the hops and malt profile in this one. So in the malt base we have Pilsner, chocolate, Munich, Carafa, biscuit malt and oats. The hops in this one are Columbus, Williamette, East Kent Goldings and Sabro. So Columbus, American hop, about 12% alpha acid, known for giving you that big spicy floral aromaticity. Williamette I think is about 12% alpha acid as well. That's quite popular in Imperial Stouts, along with Galena is the other one, because they give you the really nice red fruity characters. East Kent Goldings, you know, the classic English hop with that earthy herbal sort of character. And then Sabro we know is 14% alpha acid, known for its kind of coconutty and orangey type qualities, hence why they've probably used it in this one. And it uses a US 05 ale yeast, which is quite old school, I have to say, but I do like a bit of US 05. So let's get this guy out into the glass then and see how we go. Nice little bit of smoke on the opening there. Let's do this. This looks good. I have to say, it does look good. So there we go. I think that's about half of the bottle out and into the glass, but I have to say, this one does look pretty damn nice, but pretty much as you would expect from an 11% Imperial Stout for sure. So before the head disappears on this one, you can see that the beer poured with maybe about a quarter finger of a frothy, I would say kind of medium tan head there. Looks pretty nice, more of a kind of dark fawn colour I would say, but yeah, nice soft bubbles on the surface, but medium sized bubbles on the surface of the liquid, a few softer ones just as you go further up. But yeah, lovely dark ebony rosewood colour of this beer, which is what you'd expect. I mean, remember, the colour of your beer depends on the type of malts that you use first and foremost. That goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. Length of your wort boil is also going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker colour of beer. But any barrel aging that you do or adjuncts you put into the beer will affect its colour as well. But yeah, you just have to you don't often have to care about that, to be honest with you, when it comes to black beers like Imperial Stout. It's very difficult to take away that black colour, which in this case is probably going to be coming from the chocolate and the Carafa special that's in this one. Carafa, of course, is a trademark malt variety of the Weirmann maltery in Bamberg, Franconia, in Bavaria in Germany. Great malts, actually. But yeah, I don't think we need to say much more about the appearance of this one. You can see one or two bubbles sticking toward the side of the glass and a few travelling up toward the surface. But appearance wise, this is what you would expect of an Imperial Stout. So let's move on and do the aroma section of this video then. Very curious about this one. Oh yeah, tell you something. It really gives you that. The first thing that's going to jump out of this beer at you is big, sort of dry cocoa nibs. Really. It did say a few adjuncts in this one. So it says, yeah, cocoa nibs are in here. Lactose, which is going to explain the thickness, essential orange oil, and oak spiral. So yeah, not surprised that the kind of dry cocoa nibby character is what jumped out right away with this one. I always find that cocoa nibs just have that wee sort of dry, powdery type character to them. But aroma-wise, this beer, in some ways it comes across as quite complex, but in other ways it's actually quite straightforward, because it's, you know, the cocoa nibs kind of dominate the aroma, that's for sure. Yeah, so cocoa nibs dominate the aroma. I quite like this one, to be honest with you. But the aroma, the oranges, I have to say, take a bit of a back seat. And this was the thing when I tried the Minter Wonderland as well. The mint really took a back seat in this one, and it took a wee while to come out. So I wonder if that's going to be the case with this beer as well, actually. Could well be the case. So, yeah, for me, this one, it's... where do we start? The backbone of this beer, you can definitely smell some of that. You can definitely smell a little bit of, you know, barrel coming out of this one for sure. And as I said, this has got bourbon and rye whiskey character, or barrels have been used to make this one. So yeah, the backbone of your beer is definitely that sort of smooth American oak. So yeah, you've got that lovely big smooth American oak in there. You can smell a little bit of vanilla off of it, and you are definitely getting that whole brown sugary sort of thing, that spirity brown sugary character from both the rye and the bourbon barrels. I have to admit, I prefer rye whiskey to American bourbon. American bourbon has this little bit of bite to it that you don't get so much with Scotch whiskey, I find. Scotch whiskey is just a little bit smoother, right enough. And you know, but the Japanese and Taiwanese whiskies and things like that are even smoother than that potentially. But yeah, on top of that, as I say, you've got that nice kind of sweet rye whiskey in there. You've got a nice kind of, you get the rye whiskey, I think is the dominant one, but yeah, you can smell the kind of little bitier part of the bourbon, but then above that, you start to get the actual elements of the beer. So for me, you can smell that toasty, well-fired bread crust, but not too aggressive, not too dry. That's one of the characteristics of the Carafa that's in here. So yeah, you've got that nice kind of dry but toasty and well-fired brown bread crust. There's a good little bit of rye bread, definitely, I would say, in this one as well. Wee bit of wholemeal brown bread, which I think is probably going to come from the there was a Munich malt in there, yeah. So yeah, the Munich malt. And I think the Carafa is going to give you the rye bread, the Munich malt is going to give you the more kind of soft wholemeal brown bread. And then on top of that, you know, you're getting all the chocolate. We've got chocolate malt in here, of course. And the chocolatey side of this beer is quite interesting, because you've got the really dry cocoa nibs. And you can smell that, that's the dry kind of powdery side of the chocolate. But the actual chocolate side of things, it's a mix of sort of 40 I'd say like 40-50% cocoa chocolate. It's more of a milky chocolatey character that you get out of this one, which is quite interesting. In terms of the brown sugars, there is a little bit of like a toasty brown sugar in there, maybe a little bit of a leathery sort of thing, and a wee bit of like treacle molasses. And I think within the brown sugary bit, that's when I'm starting to get, if I take the aroma in like really deeply, that's when I'm starting to get the orange oils out of this one, which are really, really interesting. So yeah, big oily orangey characters coming out of this beer from that particular point. But yeah, the aroma of this one I think is really interesting. So I don't know, beyond that there's maybe a little bit of like biscuit, a little bit of like toasty caramel as well. But yeah, I think we've covered everything we need to about the sort of malty, yeasty side of this beer. In terms of the hoppy side of things then, if you show the beer up, you know, there is a little bit of green component to this one. We have to remember that this is composed of a blend of barrel aging. So, you know, the Imperial Stout is not the most hop forward style of beer in the first place, but if you put it into barrels, of course, a lot of the hop character is going to drop out, but and that's going to become, that effect is going to be more pronounced over time as you keep the beer in the bottle as well. So there is a wee bit of earthiness in here and a wee bit of herbal character. That's most likely to come from the East Kent Goldings of all the hops in here, but there's a good little bit of floral aromaticity. Columbus, of course, I think is the most likely candidate to give you that, and you do have some grassiness in this one, but the level of these aromas that you're going to, or the intensity of these aromas is maybe the better word, that you're going to get from that is, yeah, it's very much dependent on how, you know, what age the beer is and things like that. But yeah, on the fruity side of things then, as I say, the more, I think this is going to do the same as the Winter Wonderland did. It's going to take more and more time for the actual orange side of the beer to kind of show its face. But yeah, the more and more I smell of this beer, I get that orangey, that what's obviously the essential orange oils in this one. So that's there in the background, but on top of that fruitiness, you can get a little bit of like a datey, plummy sort of thing in the background, some sultanas in there as well. Probably a little bit of like black currant or something too. So yeah, black currants, a bit of raisin, good little bit of plum and things like that. So yeah, but definitely, yeah, the orange, of course, as you would expect from the name of this beer, dominates. I'm curious to see how this is going to turn out in the flavour as well, because it's a wee bit hard to tell. There's a few things you can do to play with an Imperial Stout. You can do like a double mash, which is going to give you a big, thick, sticky mouthfeel, and it will also give you more complexity to the beer. But they've also put a bit of lactose in this one, and they've also put oats in there. Those are also going to thicken the mouthfeel. So I'm curious to see what exactly they've done with this, but you can also do a longer wort boil with these as well, and that's going to give you big, leathery, chewy, brown, sugary characters, and again, that increases the complexity, because all in all, the aroma of this one is pretty interesting actually, and it's got a bit more complexity to it, I think, than the Winter Wonderland. The only other thing I would say on reflection about the aroma is that potentially there is a little bit of like a sort of chocolate sponge, chocolate muffiny type character, and maybe some wee nutty elements that come out of this one. A little bit the more that you smell of this thing. So yeah, as I always say, take a wee bit of time and enjoy the aroma of the beer before you get stuck into it, but I think it is about time that we have a look at this one and see what it's all about. I think this is going to be quite interesting. So yeah, this is Brian and the Chocolate Factory, an 11% Imperial Pastry Stout, the 5th anniversary beer of Carbon Brews in Photan in the New Territories here in the Hong Kong ACR. Let's get stuck in. Slàinte, skål, cheers, and happy anniversary to Carbon, of course. Oh yeah, it's interesting. I'm going to say straight away, this one, the orange is a lot sharp. When you take this beer in, you are going to get that big orange essential oil out of this one right away. It's not something you expect. Like the Imperial, it comes in with this really oily character, and you can feel like as the aftertaste kind of pushes its way out, that's when it starts to show its more kind of stouty side, if you like. So, yeah, it's interesting beer, this one, actually. I'd be curious to see how this ages, but for an 11%er, this thing, it's actually kind of quite light in its mouth. This is the other thing, is if you barrel age Imperial Stouts, you're always going to sacrifice a bit of the thickness of the beer, the mouthfeel, for these infused flavours. But this is quite quirky. This isn't really like any Imperial Stout that I can think of having had before. Yeah. Where do we start with this one then? Let's go to the middle third of the palate, actually, and as we usually do, and we'll have a wee look at the backbone of the beer. So the backbone of the beer is, of course, that kind of smooth, oaky American oak backbone. As I've said before, American oak is a bit kind of smoother and slightly sweeter than European oak, which has a bit more dryness to it. But yeah, smooth American oak in this one, a little bit of a vanilla character coming out of it too. So yeah, I would say that the on top of the wood layer, of course the wood does get a little bit drier into the aftertaste, but yeah, you've got the kind of spirit layer in there as well. You can feel the rye whiskey, and the bourbon I think is actually a little bit more prominent than the rye whiskey in this case, because you can feel, well, maybe it's a bit hard to tell, because the orange in this beer kind of overpowers almost. It's just it's quite dominant in the flavour, so the other little subtleties are a bit harder to pick up. But yeah, you've got that American oaky woody backbone, you've got a wee bit of the vanilla in there, the spirit layers there. I think it's a bit more rye whiskey orientated further back. It just feels that little bit more grainy and oily, and then as you move further forward on the palate, you can feel more of the bourbon coming out, because it's got that wee bit of like snap to it, and the brighter brown sugars. But yeah, above the spirit layer in this one, you start to get that kind of brown bready, like toasty, well-fired bread crust from the carafa malt. That's quite apparent in this one. So yeah, I do like that, actually. That is interesting. So you can feel that kind of smooth carafa malty character in there as well. Above that, you start to get like quite a dense and slightly dry rye bread. Then there's a wholemeal brown bread sitting above that, and within the wholemeal brown bready character, there is a very slight like nuttiness in there, maybe like walnuts or something. The other thing as well that this beer has in it is oak spirals, and if you add like oak or chips or spirals or whatever into the beer, is the woodiness will be a lot drier than it would be from the barrel, if I've always found, and it's just not quite as smooth, I feel like. So you are getting a little bit of an almost oaky dryness within those two bready layers as well, which is quite interesting. But certainly above the wholemeal brown bready layer, you've got the cocoa nibs and the chocolatey layer of the beer, so you can feel at the back of that middle third of your palate, the dry cocoa nibby character. Remember, more dry and bitter flavours come out further back on the palate, sweeter flavours come out further forward. So yeah, that's quite apparent in there. And yeah, as you move further forward from that, the cocoa nibs, it kind of evolves to give you more of maybe a 70% cocoa chocolate. It does start quite dark, and then it transitions as you come further forward. But more 70% cocoa chocolate, and you start to get more kind of 40% cocoa chocolate as well. So yeah, you can feel that just kind of peters out as you go further forward on the middle 30 palate within that chocolatey layer. Above that, you start to get some of the kind of brown sugary characters coming out of the beer. So So yeah, the brown sugary note in this beer, there's maybe there's a few layers to it. There's a little bit of leathery brown sugar in there. In fact, maybe there's a wee bit of toastiness underneath. Then you've got the leathery brown sugar, which usually is an indicator of a longer wort boil and things. I don't think that's the case here. But then above that kind of leathery brown sugar, you can feel a little circle in the middle of your palate where you've got that kind of more treacle molasses type flavour, and that is of course the booziness coming out of the beer. So yeah, that's quite interesting. It's quite interesting how that kind of brown sugary character goes together. But I think at that we've covered pretty much everything that we need to say about the middle third of your palate in this beer. The only other thing I would add is that maybe as you go further into the aftertaste, between the sort of wholemeal brown bready character and the chocolate, you can feel there's a little bit more of a kind of sponge cakey sort of thing, like a chocolate sponge. So that I think is, that becomes a little bit more apparent the more that you drink of the beer. But yeah, I think we've covered the middle third of the palate with this one, and that is the most complex part of the beer. So let's go to the back third of the palate. As I've often said, the back third of your palate will give you similar flavours to the middle third of your palate, just at different intensities. So yeah, border region between middle and back third of your palate, then you get a little bit of the kind of rye bread in the base, the wholemeal brown bread in the middle, and that sort of chocolate spongy character on top. You can feel the base of the back third of your palate. You've got the dryness of the wood in there, which is a bit more apparent. You've got the spirit layer as well, which I think leans more toward the kind of grainier and oilier rye whiskey. Then yeah, the toasty well-fired bread crust from the carafa, the rye bready character that sits above that. That layer is a little bit lighter and more airy. Then you've got the wholemeal brown bready layer which sits above that, which again is a little bit lighter and more airy. And then yeah, you have that sort of chocolate spongy layer, and you can feel the dry cocoa nibs creeping over the top of that, and just creeping over the top of that and giving you a nice sort of dry backbone. So yeah, it's interesting stuff. But of course, above all of that, you've got the yeasty side of the beer. So let's focus on the yeasty side of things for the moment. So the yeasty side of the beer, what can we say about that? It's got like a sweet rye bread character at the centre, I would say, and as you move further out from it, it gives you a more kind of grainy wholemeal brown bready character as well. And then yeah, a little bit of a toasty bread crusty character. And then it's a bit more of the carafa, that well fired and slightly dry character to it. So yeah, rye bread, brown bread, and then a more toasty, well fired sort of thing with this one as well. So yeah, definitely back third of your palate, you can feel the flavour is taller. Then as you move further forward into the middle third of your palate, it kind of condenses down and squashes together that little bit more. So the way that pieces together, I think, is very, very nice in this one. So it's a big thumbs up from me on the malty and yeasty side of things. I think this beer, it really takes a little bit of time just to show you its proper stouty characteristics, if you like. I don't know if I would go as far as calling this one a pastry stout. In a sense, I can see why they say pastry-like stout. It's not quite granola enough or sweet enough, I think, to really fit the kind of pastry stout category, but certainly something that's going to test your palate, and after 4,000 odd reviews, that's what you want, to be quite honest with you. So let's have a wee look at the hoppy side of things in this beer then. So, and remember, the hoppy character will drop out because of the barrel aging, but still some of that green component is there. So yeah, in the back corners of your palate, you can definitely feel a little bit of that earthy sort of thing from the East Kent Goldings. As you move further forward, it's a little touch herbal, and then as you push further forward beyond that, it just gets more grassy and it's more floral, I would say. There's a wee bit of floral spicy character on the front corners of the palate. The whole green component is actually quite wet, I suspect, because of the barrel aging. But yeah, around the front curve of the tongue, the beer is a little bit lighter and more grassy and things like this as well. So yeah, quite interesting, I would say. So yeah, the way all of that goes together, I think it is quite nice. green component, I think, you know, lingers there into the aftertaste. So you do have this kind of grassy floral note that just lingers there, which is good. But yeah, let's look at the front third of your palate then and the fruity side of things. So yeah, border region between front third and middle third of your palate. You get a nice little bit of kind of bready character in there. The sort of rye bread is in the base, the wholemeal brown bread above that, then the kind of chocolate sponge. And then on top of that, like, you know, we have to talk about impact flavours with this beer because of those orange oils. They come in straight away and they're kind of sitting on top of everything on that front third of your palate. So yeah, you've got the wood in the base, the spirit. Yeah, you've got the wood in the base, the kind of spirit, the wholemeal, the kind of rye bready sort of layer is in there as well. And the spirit, the toasty bread crust, rye bread, brown bread, cake, and then the sort of smooth cocoa nibby sort of area there. Then you've got that oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters will roll the way out the beer. But of course, on top of all of that, on top of those layers, you have this oily orange character from the orange. There's a little bit of the coconut as well. I'm picking up a wee bit of the coconut from the Sabro for sure. But let's just focus on that fruity side of the beer. So yeah, when you take it in immediately, you're going to get that big oily orangey sort of thing. Quite zesty orangey character coming out of this one. But yeah, the oily bubble that I always talk about with this beer isn't that obvious in this case. You have a little bit of, you know, at the back of that front third of your palate, there's a little bit of like an oily plum in there. You've got dates. Yeah, there's a wee bit of oily plum. You've got a little bit of a kind of date and sultana underneath as well. As you come further forward, maybe there's a wee bit of fig, and then in the front half of that front third of your palate, there's a little bit of like oily black currant in there. But yeah, the way all of that kind of pieces together, it really takes a back seat to the kind of zesty orange that the beer has. So the biggest components of this one are definitely the cocoa nibs and that sort of oily zesty orange that you get out of it. So it's an interesting beer, this one. I say it could do, you know, it could potentially do with having a little bit more, you know, a little bit of wheat in it or something. I'm just checking that it doesn't have that, but yeah, maybe adding some wheat into the malt base here and just giving it a little bit more thickness, and the malt profile could have benefited it more. But yeah, and maybe a little bit more fruitiness from the hops could have balanced things out a wee bit as well. But yeah, they say it's a chocolate orange stout. It gives you a lot of cocoa nibs and it gives you a lot of that big oily zesty orange. So it does what it says on the tin basically. So yeah, an interesting beer, this one. But I think I did prefer the Minter Wonderland a little bit more. It just had more of a kind of stouty. The stouty flavours, if you like, were just a little bit more prominent in this one than in this one, I should say. So yeah, interesting stuff. But yeah, let's round off then with a wee look at the mouthfeel of this one. So yeah, one of the things that I've been kind of grappling with this beer throughout the video is that the mouthfeel is actually fairly light, in all honesty. So yeah, the mouthfeel for me, I'd say maybe top end of mid-bodied. As I say, I wonder how much of that has been sacrificed because of the barrel aging and things. It didn't say how long it had been barrel aged and so on, but as I say, you know, putting wheat in barrel aged Imperial stouts is usually a good thing to thicken up the mouthfeel. But yeah, this one feels really, really quite light in that sense. So yeah, for me, top end of mid-bodied, carbonation is very smooth in this one. It's almost got a kind of silky like mouthfeel to it. But yeah, kind of silky mouthfeel to it, I would say. And then yeah, it says on the bottle that it's got 70 IBUs. I would find that a little bit hard to believe, to be honest with you. You do get a little bit of the earthy herbal character and some of the toastiness in the middle of the malt base lingering there into the aftertaste. So in one sense it's believable, but that doesn't dominate the beer. And you know, the other thing I have to remember is I'm not as sensitive to IBUs as I would have been once upon a time. So need to keep that in mind. But yeah, the malt base, you've got dryness underneath, a bit of a spirit layer, the kind of smoothness in the middle with a dry sweetness on top and a wee bit of brown sugar, and then yeah, you've got that big oily zesty orange and some kind of red fruity characters in it as well. But yeah, all in all, the yeah, the composition of this beer I think is pretty interesting. So yeah, it's worth trying for something a wee bit different, but I don't think it's quite as good as some of the other carbon beers that I've had in the past. Actually, I did like Winter Wonderland a little bit better than this one, I have to say. And the one that I had a while back with it was the Amburana Wood Imperial Stout. I think that one was quite quirky as well. So yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. This was the Brian and the Chocolate Factory, an 11% Imperial pastry-like stout from Carbon Brews in Photan in the New Territories here in Hong Kong. The 5th anniversary beer, this one. Quite quirky and quite unusual, but yeah, could do with a slightly thicker mouthfeel in my mind and a wee bit more balance to it. But yeah, let's leave it there. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Carbon Brews as well, and we will no doubt return to these guys again at some point in the fairly near future. But until then, slàinte, skål, cheers, and I will see you guys on the next review. Ciao just now.